essentially what Ireland Involved is about doing is about, it really started with two things, which were that I started as a volunteer finding it difficult to find volunteering opportunities that were interesting to me, or that I could understand how to approach the people. I found the whole system quite difficult originally. In Ireland we have, we have volunteer centres, we have our own website, there's a number of different websites where you can find things out. And that's, I suppose, the number one thing. I would only go through a website, but that's just me. Like, there are lots of people who obviously go to offices or go directly to the organisations, or who look up the golden pages, or look at the newspapers. There's a massive group, but there is also a very strong group who will use just web. And I found it very difficult to find the opportunities that I needed, or to understand how they went, how I could find them online. So that was the first thing. And then when I did apply, I felt it was very slow. The response rates were really slow. Now, at the time I didn't understand how organisations work. But this is a very common thing. People don't understand how organisations work. And having looked at it, I came to the conclusion that there's a huge administrative burden associated with accepting volunteers in most organisations. Now, in the UK it's a little different, but in Ireland particularly, we have 40,000 organisations, we estimate now, most of whom don't use any sort of system of any kind. It really is paper and beside the phone, because most of them are 4 or 5 people. But that burden, when 10 people are emailing you to come to volunteer for you, and then you're trying to send an email here, there, and back and forth, and they're putting it into one system and they're changing around, all very cumbersome. And to my mind, coming from a digital background, I couldn't understand why in the private sector we've got these great systems, why don't they exist in the charity sector? So what we decided to do was come up with the idea of an integrated web platform, and that's why it says that up there at the top. And that won't make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but what it really means is that instead of having a one-on-one relationship, so me and my computer or me and my Excel spreadsheet, it's actually the idea that you're all part of one system. Basically the idea being that organisations get a volunteer management system, individuals get their own account system, and there's also a portal at the front end. And we also built a social enterprise model which is about corporates and giving them a certain amount of information too. But on the back end, it's not about, this is to the individual who doesn't volunteer currently, wants to find out about stuff. They can go and they can find out about opportunities, events, organisations, and because you can see volunteer centres are a strong part of it. And what we're using here is social media a little bit, very specifically. We have our blog which feeds these, so it's telling people what's going on and giving them an insight into it. And we allow each of the organisations there in the opportunity, each organisation can use it, and they are obviously connected to whatever social media they're using. So if they are using it, then it's another way to drive that brand. It's free completely for all organisations to use in the country. This is the inside system for a volunteer manager. So this organisation is active at Age Action, for example. And my point being about using systems to actually manage people, you can see, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at this, but it's here. Opportunities is just listing opportunities, events is listing events. Volunteers. My point was around looking at who you have currently and what are they doing. You can do a search and you can find people and send them out an email and ask them, first round, can you help me? This is a big factor that we've identified in a lot of the bigger organisations in Ireland, where they have databases that are ancient. Thousands of people, say particularly the Cancer Society is a great example, thousands of people who only ever shook buckets for them. But actually, there's probably half a dozen marketing managers in there if they're looking for one, or half a dozen accountants, great people who would be happy to get involved because they've already shown their support. This is basically one of the principles of the thing, is to reduce the administrative burden. And the other thing is, you can see at the top there, is a schedule. So you can schedule people in for specific tasks and know when they're doing things and what they're doing. And the idea would be in phase 2 is that would move into more of a project management tool. I know I sound like one trick pony, but communication really is the key to all of this, I think. But it's about using the right tools to communicate with people in ways that they will actually understand and will actually keep them in the loop. But essentially, we're in a crisis unity. There's a changing world going on around us. People have a lot going on in their lives, they're reassessing where they are, and organisations are in flux. But technology really does have the capacity, if used correctly, to build that bridge across the gap. But it is about approaching it a little bit differently than a lot of other people would say, I think. A lot of people think that social media is the silver bullet, and that somehow tools will just look after themselves. But in reality, it's about figuring out what are your objectives, where are you going, who are you trying to target, and what are you trying to achieve, and then adopting a project-oriented approach, which many of you may probably do. But for those who are just looking for kind of standardised volunteering, I think that is a new approach, and communicating that project continuously through both social media and email and through using the technology itself will actually engage people more, because they relate to that more. That's the way they work currently. It will definitely, I'm going to say definitely, but I think it is certainly one of the ways in which we can move towards bridging the gap.